This video is a personal story about addiction, recovery, and the experiences that shaped my journey. It is not intended to promote, encourage, or glorify drug use. Today is a very important day for me because 10 years ago, I decided to change my life. 8/17/2016. 10 years ago. Today is 8/17/2026. 10 years I've been opiate free. And I never felt very comfortable talking about this because I had to prove that I can not do drugs for 10 years. It's very hard to do. So I'll just get started with my childhood. I had a great childhood. I had a ton of friends. I never really paid attention in school. I always thought it was worthless. And honestly, all I did was pass my classes. And I was the black sheep of the family. So I've always been kind of an outcast. But once I graduated high school, I realized that not doing good in school meant I would be a cart pusher at Walmart. So I was a cart pusher at Walmart at 19 years old whenever I decided to join the Army. And I was an intelligence analyst at 35 Fox. I don't really want to get into details. It was pretty traumatic. I disliked the Army a lot, but I'm still glad I did it. It gave me a lot of things that I have now. I don't exactly regret it, but I definitely wouldn't do it again. Before deployment, I came back home and I met up with my friend Matto, rest in peace. I decided before I was going to go to Afghanistan that I wanted to take 7 grams of shrooms to try and figure out my life, and it was insane. I just remember we were watching this documentary called The Corporation, and it made me believe like aliens were sending me to Afghanistan. I really became a conscious objector, and I was very against what I was doing even before I got there. So a lot of my trauma stems from that, from the Army. But I did my time. I did drink every day. I smoked a ton of K2 constantly. To try and numb the feeling of having no control over your life. So whenever I got out, I didn't care what I was gonna do. I just wanted to make sure I could have my life back, but with drugs. So I was a server at Applebee's, and I remember one time I was talking to one of my managers, Sean, also RIP, looked at me and was just like, he knew I was on stuff. And he just goes, "You're the smartest, dumbest person I know." And that always stuck with me, like what am I doing with my life, but I still enjoy those times. I don't have a lot of regrets from those times. I did briefly quit. I briefly quit, moved to Florida, tried to change my life. I still drank in Florida. I wouldn't consider me a total druggie while I was out there. One of my friends took me in. She's a great person, and for a year I worked at a hotel, and then I was tired of being broke, so I took a job in Kuwait where I interviewed third country nationals. I'm not gonna dive into that. Maybe that's another day. I just want to bring that up. But whenever that job ended, I came back home with a bunch of money, and I decided that I was gonna go even harder than I did before, because there's always a saying that would go through my mind: if I'm miserable, why not do drugs to feel better? You know what I mean? Your mind plays tricks on you. It'll say this is what you want. This is gonna make you feel better when it doesn't. It does, but whenever you don't have it, it's like a freight train hitting you. My daily intake, I was doctor shopping and stuff like that. I was prescribed. Oh Jesus, spider! I was prescribed 2 1 milligram Klonopins a day, 2 30 milligram instant release Adderalls a day. I was doing fentanyl that I would get off the dark web, and it was a spray, and it was 500 micrograms of spray. And I was also smoking 24/7, and I drank, but drinking was never an issue. It was just kind of there, and it intensified everything. My main thing was fentanyl. I could not live without that during that time. And 500 micrograms, like I would pass out, doing the fentanyl, and my neck would just be in so much pain. I mean, you're on pain meds, but your neck still hurts so bad because you just passed out with it, with your head down like this. And it gave such sharp pains that you'd still feel it even on fentanyl. And I do believe the only reason why I'm still alive is because I was taking Adderall. Oh my God! Big spider. Okay. Anyways, I believe that by the grace of God and Adderall that my heart was still going after that, because I have OD'd many times. It never made me quit. I never saw it as like a quitting, like you could die. I don't know why I didn't want to die, but it just wasn't a motivating factor whenever I OD'd. I could tell stories about the ODs, but it's actually pretty hard to. So we're gonna skip over those. And during this time, the hardest part was that you couldn't trust yourself. You literally couldn't trust yourself, even whenever you're like, oh no, I won't do, you know, I'm gonna wait 6 hours or whatever, and then you only end up waiting, you know, 3, and then you pass out, you wake up like 10 hours later, you'd be like, did I die? I don't know, I'm just gonna go. And then you just recoup and then do it again and again and again. I ended up becoming homeless, jobless, burned a lot of bridges. I still had close friends somehow. And my friend lent me, and whenever I decided like this is too much, I was literally losing my mind. I felt like I was losing my mind, freaking out on everybody. I decided I wanted to quit. My buddy lent me his bed, and I was just laying there, just freaking throwing up and everything else. It was coming out of all ends, I'll just say that. But I still was on all of my prescription, I still smoke weed, stuff like that. So my family had an intervention and was like, you need, you know, and I didn't even let them read. I was just like, yeah, I'll go. You know, it was time. It was so time. So they found this place called Teen Challenge, and I ended up going to Fort Myers, Florida, because I did enjoy my time in Florida. I love Florida. It's a beautiful place. But I showed up to Teen Challenge. I was 118 pounds. I was so dead inside. I couldn't even move. I didn't know what to think. I was an atheist, and this is a very religious, you know, almost cult, but I don't want to speak any ill will, because they helped me out a ton. So the first like 3 days I was there, all I could do was lay in bed. I couldn't move. I felt awful. The only thing I would do is go up and just shiver because I was sweating, and like going to the restroom. It was awful. It was so awful. But every breakfast, lunch, and dinner, someone would come in. They would feed me, and they wouldn't judge me at all, and they understood that I may not do the events, you know? Like, I needed that so bad during this time. I appreciate, I think his name was Scotty. He was the one that was feeding me. But he would just say, well, you know, we really look forward to you coming to the church. You know, all the guys are out here. We all understand. No one's going to judge you. So on the third day, I rose and I went to the church. I just said, screw it. I gotta get up. You know, I was starting to get some of my feeling back. Felt like I was becoming a person again. Went inside the church, listened to the sermon, kind of, you know, I was still really out of it. And at the end, they're just like, hey, we have a new person. Why don't you come on up to the altar? You know, I was like, oh, God. And I get up there, and all these other drug addicts who've been through it were putting their hands on me and just gave the most amazing prayer that I needed so bad. And I'll tell you, I wept like a baby, and I was uncontrollable. It felt like a demon was coming out of me, and I honestly, it did cure me. Like, before this moment, I was dreaming about drugs every single night, every day for years. I would find them in my pocket, and it was like I was relapsing again, you know, in your dream. And then you wake up, you don't know if it's real or not, dude. You're so out of it. So after this moment, I did not dream about drugs ever again. I felt great. There was no more withdrawals, and I just helped the community with the Teen Challenge people. Like, we did all sorts of stuff. We helped feed the homeless, we cleaned churches. I mean, it was an amazing experience. Truly was. 2 stories. The first story is a guy named Chief. He was like a minister guy that would walk around, make sure you're all good. He'd give sermons, he'd help out with a bunch of stuff. And he pulled me aside one day and was just like, I heard you talking, and it sounds like you used your brother. Why do you use your family? Why do you want to hurt your family? What's wrong with you? If you keep doing this, all you're doing is you're purposely hurting your family. And I just never put it in that perspective. I only thought I was hurting myself. I think that's a lot of drug addicts. Is we only think we're the ones taking the drugs. You're not. What's the deal? But you're like losing that person. I understand all that now. And he really put that in perspective. He was a very straight shooter. Another story is we helped this elderly couple during one of the hurricanes in Florida. And whenever we got out there, we helped them. It was great. Everything was great. Afterwards, we went and got Cracker Barrel with this guy who logistically helped like them get hold of us so we go out there and do all this stuff. He did a lot of disaster relief stuff. We were all sitting there, and this guy was just talking, and we're all listening. So glad we can get some Cracker Barrel. It was different, I'm not saying the food was bad or anything, but having a restaurant meal in that moment was amazing. Even being out, this place you couldn't go out, you couldn't do anything. Rightfully so, you can't trust yourself. You gotta be able to have some rules. He was telling a story about his son, how he couldn't get out of addiction. And he started crying, and he looks at me and he goes, I just want my son back. And in that moment, it was like I was tripping on LSD. His face morphed into my dad's face. And it's so hard to talk about this. It was insane. I felt my dad's pain in that moment, and I just used that as a shield anytime I even want to think about drugs. I don't think about drugs anymore, but there are weak moments in life where you will, and it's so easy whenever you're like, I'm not hurting my family anymore, especially whenever you've felt their pain and you've seen it. And this guy, he loved Teen Challenge because he would, we gave him hope while we saw his side of things. It's an incredible moment. I ended up only doing 90 days, and that's just because I'm not into church, I'm not into the Bible, I'm not a minister, that place is there to share what your story is, and a very specific way of saving and going to God, things like that. And I'll be honest, I just believe in God. I have a hard time with anything man involved. I can't trust it, power to man. So I just go to the source, no matter what, And I'm just talking about mine. I'm not saying this is right or this is wrong. I just feel in my heart I am right with God, and what I'm doing and prayer and everything else has really assisted me through life. But I love Teen Challenge. I want to stress that. I love Teen Challenge. I love what it did for me. I honestly don't think I could have done it without them taking me out of my shit and putting me where everything was positive. You're only helping people. You're not sitting around talking about drugs. We obviously did whenever people are away, talking about the old times, but that wasn't something that they, would allow. My parents have always been very giving. My dad is so helpful. Growing up, he'd always let me take a friend to the movies. He'd let him ride our four-wheelers. He was just such a great dad. And my mom, she's always been giving. She's a very big churchgoer, and for her birthday, all she wants is for us to donate our time to like a food bank. And even my friend Nate, he would have so much growing up, which means I had so much, dude. Whenever he had all the video games, I could go over there. He can bring them over. I can go over there. We'd play them. It was a great childhood. I'll always remember, and it's why I can give the way I give, because I know I'm changing that person's day. And why not, All right, let's talk about my current situation. Like, why am I making this video? Well, I just recently lost my private contractor job. I've been in IT for I've had this really good job for 7 years, but for 10 years I've been in an IT career. After I got out of rehab, I started an IT career, and it's been very successful. I don't want to work for the government. I don't want to work on computers anymore. I am financially free, you know. I made some good investments. I set myself up for success, and I do not need a job anymore, and I'm very grateful for that. But that's why I'm making these videos. I want to help others, you know. I shouldn't be alive. So this just gives me so much joy to help a shelter dog or help a family. There's going to be other things that I do, and I'm just going to end you with this. You know, positivity is infectious. It truly is. I watch a lot of these videos. You know, that's where I got the idea of the shelter. Oh, you just go and get a dog out of a kennel, you know, and give them a great day. That would be amazing. Why not? And I bought these my meta glasses because I was gonna go travel and I needed translation. So everything just kind of, and then I lost my job and everything just kind of binded together, you know. So I'm really excited about all this, and thanks for watching.